Previously on the On College Basketball Podcast.
Norlander elsewhere on Tuesday night. Auburn at Texas A&M. Keep an eye on that one. Texas A&M on a 4-game losing streak. Auburn has already locked up the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament. 2 programs headed in different directions. But keep an eye on that.
By Buzz Williams.
83-72 is the final.
Vindication!
Hey there, Gary Parrish. Welcome back to the CBS Sports Eye on College Basketball Podcast, where we sometimes discuss camel fighting dodo birds and leaky blacks. The Eye on College Basketball Podcast is presented by Jersey Mike's, a sub above. Matt Norlander is here with me. If you're watching on YouTube, you know what to do to the like button. Shouts to Brandon Davies. And if you haven't yet subscribed to the CBS Sports College Basketball YouTube channel, please also do that while you're here. Let's get into it. Yeah. Place to start appears to be College Station. I told you on Sunday, keep your eye on it. I sure hope that you did. Final score, number 22, Texas A&M, 83. Number 1, Auburn, 72. Norlander, I told you to keep your eye on it. Did you keep your eye on it?
I kept your eye on it. You should have bailed out on the typical intro. You should have just gone right into it. You deserve that, because you know what? There's been, I've lost count of how many times we've called back the start of an episode of you claiming something to happen. It doesn't happen. Then you got to wear it. This one you get to wear proudly. I kept my eye on it.
Thank you.
I kept both eyes on it, and it was. How about that? Great call by you. Great call by you. And I wasn't surprised that that AM got the win. I was with you on there, but you said first, keep your eye on it. How about this though? Auburn shoots 57% from 2, 41% from 3, 86.7% from the foul line, gets 1.16 points per possession, and loses by 11. This is Texas A&M in a nutshell. It's not a good shooting team. It's erratic and unpredictable on the offensive end, but it can maul you, and maul it did. And 24 offensive rebounds against the number 1 team in the country. Came ready, snapped a 4-game losing streak in the process. Anderson Garcia had 11-11, had himself a nice night. Shurik Phelps was 19 off of the bench, and good on A&M. My buddy Stephen Hartzell calls him Cash Bar Buzz because of the look. Because if you go to a wedding and someone's dressed up like Buzz Williams, it's probably going to be a Cash Bar. Cash Bar Buzz called off the court storm. This is the new hotness in college basketball, by the way. It's SEC coaches imploring their students to not run onto the floor. A&M had never beaten a number 1 team in its history ever until last night, and Buzz Williams successfully avoided a hefty fine from Greg Sankey, and in the process got himself one hell of a win.
I love the way some coaches have started using the SEC fine, the way to get around it and encourage people to actually not rush the court is to say, hey, this is 6 figures we could either send to the SEC office or I could buy a point guard. Wait, like, what do you guys want me to do? You want me to buy a point guard, or you want me to just mail this check to the SEC office? If you would prefer a point guard, then please don't come up. They act like it's all the money all comes from the same pot. Whatever.
And the idea that there's there's a couple chemistry majors in the 4th row being like, guys, we need a point guard next year. We need a point guard. We can't get out there. You don't realize we have a serious issue. Do you know who's going to be our second guy off the bench? I don't know. We can't have to afford this.
Stay right here. It's like effective. Who knew how easy it was to trick SEC students into not storming the court? You just had to make them. You got to make them believe that there's a pot of money laying around, and it could either be spent on players or fines, one or the other.
The absolute best image, though, like Buzz did it one time, and then the game ends. He shakes hands with Bruce Pearl, and then they're done, and then Pearl's out of the shot of the screen, and it's Buzz Williams again, just holding up his hand 7 more seconds.
That's real power.
He's got serious power over the crowd. It was incredible image. What were your thoughts on the game and on the result? That was man, A&M needed that one. They just, again, 4-game losing streak, and to get it done at home and to snap the spell. Yeah, that was good vibes down there in College Station.
I'm not going to say that I called it because I didn't. If I called it, you'd know. There'd be a clip of me saying, I'm telling you Texas A&M is going to upset Auburn on Tuesday night. I didn't say that. I just told you to keep your eye on it. And I don't know why I told you to just keep one eye on it. I should assume most people have two eyes and you should be able to keep both on it. But maybe I didn't want you to put all your attention on it.
You don't want to be ableist. I get it.
The Tuesday night is a busy night. I wanted one eye on one thing, and then, you use your other eye for other things. Maybe that's what I was trying to do. I told you to keep your eye on it because I'm not surprised something like this would happen. I didn't predict it, but it's not surprising to me. First off, the point spread was like 4.5. So, like, by definition, it's not as surprising as some people made it out to be. Beyond that, Bruce Pearl talked about this after the game last night. I'm paraphrasing here, but he more or less said it's human nature to let up and lose focus when you have wrapped up the stuff we've wrapped up. And it's undeniable that they've wrapped up the SEC regular season title, the number 1 seed in the SEC tournament, and a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. I guess if you wanted to debate whether they've locked up the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament, you can. But I believe that they've already locked that up. And I can just tell you, Jerry Palm sent an email late last night to the staff saying they're still the number 1 overall seed this morning after the loss at Texas A&M. And he continued, if they lose Saturday to Alabama on Sunday, they will still be the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament. He did say he would then want to see how the conference tournaments unfolded before he stamped it. Auburn is the number 1 overall seed. But either way, Auburn is pretty close to locking up everything that you could reasonably lock up in advance of last night's game. And if you've ever competed at anything, you should know that what Bruce Pearl said last night is true. Once you feel like you've won, like it's over, like this part of the competition is completed, it's easy to lose focus. And oh, by the way, on the other side, you've got a team that's on a 4-game losing streak that was once ranked in the top 10. You've got a team at home in front of an incredible crowd. It was just set up for something like that to happen, and then it happened.
It did, and by the way, Buzz Williams has guided A&M to its best wins from a regular season rankings perspective ever. He has the 3 best ones. Last night was the first time they'd ever beaten number 1. In 2023, the only time A&M has ever beaten the number 2 team. They beat Alabama that season, and the season before that, when Auburn was number 4, Jabari Smith, they won that game. So only 3 top 4 wins in program history for the Aggies. All have come in the past 4 seasons, all under Buzz Williams. A&M was 0-9 against number 1 teams prior to Tuesday night. That was, by the way, Auburn's first loss to a ranked team outside the top 10 this season. So good on A&M to get that W. The Aggies will wrap up the regular season on Saturday at LSU. We'll see if it's a tricky road test or not. I did think last night Cooper Flagg, some would have said Cooper Flagg was ahead in the National Player of the Year race before last night. Before tip, I probably would have still given, if I had to vote right then and there, I would have voted Janai Broome. I now would have Flagg ahead. Broome had 8 points. He was 4 of 9 from the field, had 2 turnovers, 2 assists. He has had back-to-back duds, so to speak. And you know, when the race is this close, and it is in every other game proposition, you see what Flagg did against a just Wake team, whatever. He was really good again. But Broome in his past 2 games has combined for 17 points and 13 rebounds. So we'll see if that can change moving forward. As you know, I know I remind our audience often, as it pertains to CBS Sports, we do not vote on our National Player of the Year until the Elite Eight has completed. So as far as I'm concerned, this race is not done. I see Nada in the chat, in the YouTube chat, saying that the Flag should have wrapped this up a little while ago. I disagree. I'm just not there. Broome has played tougher competition, and I still think it's a very, very close race. It's a compelling race. It's cool for college hoops, but right now, I would vote for Flag if we had to do it today. We'll see if that changes, 4 or 5 days from now.
It is hilarious that Nada just jumps in the chat under the CBS Sports College Basketball, just argues with everybody.
I love it.
Just tells everybody they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, it's good. I actually think it's if you tend to only listen to the show and don't watch it on YouTube, this is yet another reason why it's an understated perk of the show. Is sometimes fools start running around the hallways of that chat, and Nada is not suffering a single one of them, and we appreciate him for that too.
Auburn is 15-3 in quadrant 1 still, 27-3 overall, 15-2 in the SEC, 15-3 in quadrant 1. As of last night, it should have been 16-3. Overnight, they lost a quadrant one win somewhere. I just noticed it just disappeared. That's the way these things work.
Where to go? This is the quadrant system. You
go to bed with it. You wake up, it's already gone. You wake up, it's out the door. Man, we all been there, hadn't we?
I can't say that I have actually.
Well, you didn't live
for another time. We don't need to get into that on a Wednesday. I've never experienced that.
Oh well, man, it's.
I wanted to stick around. What do you want me to say?
It's startling. It's a startling thing to wake up to. You got a lot of stuff to make sense of once your eyes open, you know? So the winning percentage in quadrant one is still 83.3. For some context, like if you want Auburn to drop from number one, what most people would argue right now is that Duke should move up to number one. Duke is 6-3 in quadrant one. Again, Auburn is 15-3 in quadrant one. So whether you just look at quadrant one wins, one team's got 9 more than the other and the same number of losses. That's dramatic, but it doesn't have to only. You don't even. It doesn't have to be that. You can just look at. Okay, if you want to argue, it's not fair to judge it on raw quadrant one victories because Duke didn't get as many opportunities. Then let's just look at how batting average, so to speak. How'd you do when you did get the opportunities? And Auburn is still well above where Duke is. Auburn's winning percentage in quadrant one, 83.3. Duke's is 66.7. And even if they lose on Saturday, Auburn, the winning percentage in quadrant one is going to remain much better than Duke's and in a place where they'll still be projected to be the number one overall seed in the NCAA tournament. As I've said a million times at this point, don't think of them as a basketball team. Think of them as a golfer. They bogeyed. They went to College Station and they bogeyed. And so they come back to the pack a little bit, but they still got a comfortable lead on the pack, and they should still win this golf tournament, so to speak, as long as you're labeling quote golf tournament, the quest to be the number one seed overall in the 2025 NCAA tournament.
I even go beyond the quad stuff because that can get a little bit tricky. Right now, Duke is 7th in KPI, 7th in the resume-based metric KPI, 3rd in strength of record, 6th in wins above bubble. Auburn is number one across the board. So you've got a situation where Auburn has the best resume and Duke rates as the best team. Duke is number one in all the predictive metrics. It has passed Houston at Torvik and all that. And those are two different things. When it comes to seeding, it is more about what you've done than how great you are. There is obviously a narrow pathway where those two lines meet, and they can make for a very intriguing discussion. Hell, maybe we get there in the next 10 days, depending on what Auburn does or doesn't do in the SEC tournament and what Duke does or doesn't do in the ACC tournament. But right now, indisputably, Auburn has the number one resume. For Duke fans that want to puff out their chest, hey, you should. Your team's looking good. In fact, not a flip on the mic real quick. Our YouTube question today is, which team do you trust more? Who do you trust more over the next 4 weeks? Not who's better right now. Who do you think will win the championship? Just over the next 4 weeks, Auburn versus Duke. Who do you trust more? Nada, what's our results so far? 15 minutes into the show.
15 minutes in the show. Duke is winning this 57-43 over Auburn. Kind of surprising on my end, at least.
GP, who do you trust more over the next 4 weeks? Auburn or Duke?
I'll trust Auburn. I'm not going to get caught up in recency bias. I have thought for a while that Auburn looked like the best team in college basketball. I know that Duke has looked awesome and is beating everybody by 25 plus. Very aware. I don't think it's obvious. I don't feel strong enough about it to have a real debate. But to answer the question, if I had to vote in that poll, I would vote. I would vote Auburn just barely.
It's a great thing for college hoops, by the way. And for those that are getting caught up in the number one overall seed, it does mean something. But by the way, these teams are going to be on the opposite sides of the bracket. They're going to go to the regions that they need to go to with their geographic preference, and they won't face each other until the national title game if they face each other again. Obviously, Duke won the matchup earlier this season. Duke had the benefit of getting that game on its home floor. If those two teams met at Neville, pretty confident Auburn would have won that game. So it was somewhat circumstantial. All credit to Duke. They got the head-to-head win, and I happen to think it's an awesome thing that we have two awesome teams that are going, toe-to-toe, so to speak, and happen to have the two best players in the sport.
Looking ahead, Auburn going to close the regular season on Saturday, hosting Alabama inside Neville. Texas A&M will close the regular season at LSU. Up next, we'll play Stay or Hit, brought to you by Chumba Casino. But first, let's get a word from our partners.
Gives it to Jenkins for the championship. A 16 beats a 1. From sweet to elite to the Final Four.
All right, now it's time for the Stay or Hit segment brought to you by Chumba Casino. Whether you're chilling at home or on the move, play for the chance to redeem some serious prizes with Chumba Casino. Norlander, today we're playing Stay or Hit, potential number one seeds in the 2025 NCAA tournament, not named Auburn, Duke, or Houston. Follow me here. Auburn is a lock. We agree.
Yes.
Duke and Houston are probables. We agree.
Yes.
So for the sake of this conversation, let's discuss potential fourth number one seeds. And let's start with Michigan State. You made the case for the Spartans to get to the top line on yesterday's episode on CBS Sports Network. For those who might have missed it, make the case again, please.
Well, Michigan State right now is a 24-5 team that right now, let me refresh their resume stuff. Sparty, it is 7th in wins above bubble, 6th in strength of record, or 7th in strength of record, 6th in KPI, 10-4 in quad 1, 15-5 in quad 1 and quad 2. Combined quad 1 and quad 2 victories. The only teams that have more are Bama, Houston, and Auburn in Q1, Q2. It is my prediction that if Michigan State wins out, and that would be a win Thursday night at Iowa, a sweep of Michigan Sunday, America's Most Watched Network, CBS, and then wins the Big Ten tournament. That's right. If it wins those two, that'll get to 26-5, and then it gets 3 games in the Big Ten tournament that will get to 29-5. I believe that a team that sweeps the second best conference in the country for both championships and would be 29-5 in that scenario, I happen to think that Michigan State would get a number one seed in that scenario. If it didn't, I haven't had all the data here, but I don't think that we would have ever seen that before. And maybe the SEC being this good is going to be proved to be the exception to the rule. But I don't think that there has ever been a case where a team has won the regular season and postseason championship in what the data shows is a top 2 league and not received a number one seed.
Okay. Now let's play Stay or Hit. Potential number one seeds in the 2025 NCAA tournament, not named Auburn, Duke, or Houston. Think of it this way, Norlander. I'm going to name teams, and you tell me which one you think is more likely to end up with a number one seed on Selection Sunday. First question, do you want to stay on Michigan State or hit and get Alabama?
I suggest you hit, sir.
He wants the Crimson Tide.
That's correct. What I just said about Michigan State is what I think would happen if that comes to pass. I don't think that will come to pass. I don't think that Michigan State is going to win out and not lose again until the NCAA tournament. I think Alabama's chances of getting a 1 seed are more likely than Michigan State narrowly, and it's because of the opportunities that are in front of Alabama. Crimson Tide are staring at a home game against Florida tonight. If I knew that Alabama was going to lose tonight, then I would have stayed, but I'm not going to stay. Bama's got the home game against Florida. I give them a slight edge.
Do you remember where you were the day you stopped trusting Tom Izzo, winning his coach in Big Ten history?
Never happened.
Feels like it happened just now.
I assure you it did not.
Do you want to stay on Alabama, or do you want to hit and get Iowa State?
I'll stay.
What?
You've always hated Iowa State. You have always hated Iowa State.
We're going to get to the Cyclones in a minute. You're aware of what just happened on Tuesday night, right?
Iowa
State has no shot. This is a 1 seed discussion, right? How'd you get in here, Iowa State? What are you doing here? What are you doing here?
We have a format, Norlander, and you have to fill up the format. You know how sometimes
Clemson?
You know how sometimes you might look at a 68 team bracket that Jerry Palm puts together, and you'll be like, Indiana? How'd you get in here? Indiana?
Right. Ask me, Alabama or Baylor?
I'll stay.
Indiana. And what Jerry Palm would tell you is, Norlander, you got to fill it up with somebody, right? And I know how you feel about Iowa State and have since October, but fine, you're staying. Let's move on.
Okay.
Do you want to stay on Alabama, or do you want to hit and get Florida?
Well, these teams play tonight, so I need to predict who I think is going to win.
I'll stay.
Bama.
Oh, wow.
I'll say Bama beats Florida on Wednesday night.
Do you want to stay on Alabama or hit and get St. John's?
You're born.
Wrong button. Sorry.
Come on, Jesus, I didn't even know what to do with that. I didn't know where to go next.
You know what, Parrish, I'm so offended by that question.
You're born.
I didn't know what to do. That sounds like your own little personal button you have for whatever you need it for. Why you got that? Why do you have that available to you?
Why? Because
2 rings.
that's why. That's why it's on the board. Bama or St. John's? I do actually. I like St. John's chances to not lose again.
We'll see how much.
But you know what?
I'll stay.
Wow, the same stay or hit segment. You've decided not to believe in Tom Izzo and Rick Pitino.
Well, it's an either or. I got to do one or the other. Okay.
Who's next? Won't you crap on Greg Popovich while you're at it?
Well, you got this. You know what? Bama or San Antonio to get the 1 seed?
I'll stay.
Okay. We've eliminated the Spurs.
Yes.
De'Aaron Fox might be a problem, but they lost Wemby. We've eliminated the Spurs.
Yes.
Do you want to stay on Alabama or hit and get Tennessee? Rocky Top.
I suggest you hit, sir.
You're going to go with the Vols.
I am. Tennessee is on the 1 line right now. This is just who I think is most likely. At Ole Miss Wednesday, home to South Carolina, and then if it can make the SEC title game, it would be narrow. The whole purpose of this exercise is, 1, to fulfill a sponsorship's obligations, but 2, to really lay out the compelling nature of what we talked about on the Tuesday show on CBS Sports Network. It's an awesome race for the final 1, maybe final 2 1 seeds right now, and it feels fairly unpredictable. So I guess as a result of what you just did here and how you backed me into that corner, you little rascal. I'll say Tennessee. I'll say Tennessee is the most likely team to get the 4th 1 seed if Duke and Houston maintain the 1 line.
That was the stay or hit segment. Brought to you by Chumba Casino. Ready to dive into some excitement? Chumba Casino is where it's at. It's free to play, so just jump right in and explore over hundreds of social casino-style games with fresh new releases every week. Play anytime, anywhere, and enjoy free daily login bonuses and an amazing welcome offer. Now, let's do the Wednesday whip around, and let's start with some nice achievements by coaches in non-power conferences. Do you mind me celebrating, Coach? Can I just celebrate coaches? I know you've already been dismissive of the career of Tom Izzo and dismissive of the career of Rick Pitino. But if you don't mind, I'd like to be the person on this podcast who celebrates coaching achievements. Let's start in the AAC. Memphis beat UTSA 75-70 on the road, which means the Tigers have secured at least a share of the AAC title, which means Penny Hardaway has the first AAC championship of his college coaching career. In the Atlantic 10, VCU beat Duquesne 71-62, which means VCU has secured at least a share of the Atlantic 10 title, which means Ryan Odom has secured the first A-10 championship of his college coaching career. And in the Mountain West, New Mexico beat Nevada, which means New Mexico has secured at least a share of the Mountain West Conference title, which means Richard Pitino has the first Mountain West championship of his career. In fact, in year 13 as a Division I head coach, Richard Pitino now has a conference championship for the first time. He did 1 year at FIU, 8 at Minnesota. This is year 4 at New Mexico. How about this? The Mountain West and the Big East are 2 of the top 6 leagues in college basketball this season.
Yes.
They're won by Patinos.
Yes.
Patinos are responsible for 2 of the top 6 conference championships in the country this season. It's been a nice run for the Patinos.
It has, and I did the research on this in the court report a few weeks back. There has never been a season where a father and son have had the same in-season success as what the Patinos are doing this year. This is actually, this is it by a comfortable margin. This will not be the first time that both Richard and Rick are in the tournament at the same time. Richard 1 year at Minnesota and Rick at Louisville. They made the tournament in the same season, but they obviously weren't nearly as good as what they're doing here. Pretty cool family story there. You mentioned Ryan Odom and Richard Pitino. Just so happens both of those guys are also candidates currently for the impending Virginia vacancy. We'll see if either one of them gets it, but they are definitely in the mix there, and rightfully so, because look at what they're doing. And Ryan Odom went from Utah State to VCU. He was a natural fit for the Rams job, and He's just the latest coach who's been able to find some real success. The A10 trying to be a multi-bid league, if that's going to be the case. VCU just needs to, win a couple more games, make sure its at-large situation is secure. And then if it doesn't win the at-large, or the auto bid in the A10, then potentially the A10 could get 2. The same thing's got to happen. You mentioned Memphis. Same thing's got to happen in the American. Memphis can't win the auto bid in order for that league to have 2 wins overall. Before we get to a lot of the bubble stuff, I did want to at least bring up one more thing I saw. You mentioned VCU and the A10. Dave Chappelle just showed up to the SLU Dayton game on Tuesday, and then I'm not sure who shared the video, but Chappelle and Anthony Grant took a post-game picture in the tunnel and had a little chat. Anthony Grant, one of the more stoic figures in college basketball. I had never seen this dude smile as large of a smile as I had ever seen as him getting to talk to Chappelle. I don't know if that was the first time he met him or not. Chappelle is from the Ohio area, and I believe he holds residence there. But it was just a random kind of cool thing to see Dave Chappelle just sitting courtside like Spike Lee at a Dayton game last night. So that was notable as well.
Yeah, Dave still lives in Ohio, and it was frustrating. I was like, of all the 18 games I've been in studio for, how did we not get the Dave Chappelle game?
Yeah.
How do we not get the Dave Chappelle game? I got a million Sister Jean games, but you couldn't get the Dave Chappelle game. So no, that was a cool visual. One last thing, as long as we're just talking things that are connected to what we're talking about. San Diego State late last night on our air lost at UNLV in another interesting Mountain West Conference develop, but was a 10 seed this time yesterday, according to Jerry Palm. We'll see where it goes from here, but we could look up on Selection Sunday, and getting swept by UNLV in this regular season might really cost the Aztecs a bid. The home loss to UNLV was a quad 3. Last night's loss was a quad 2.
I think so. I would still have the Aztecs in the field. They have the benefit of being above 500 in Q1 and Q2 right now. There's a lot of bubble teams that have had more opportunity. SDSU has a combined 15 chances so far against Q1, Q2 teams. There have been teams that have had 18, 20, 22, 23 that are sub 500. I think they're still in the field. That is, that's just one of those resume wrinkles that's going to make you sweat a little bit more, and that is certainly notable. Boise State also got a win. We can tour the bubble in general here, GP, but in the Mountain West, Boise State didn't mess around. It won at Air Force. Aztecs are 20-8. Broncos are 22-8, and Boise State also similarly is a bubble team. It's 7-6 in Q1 and Q2 right now. It's behind SDSU in the pecking order, in my estimation, from an at-large perspective. Mountain West going to try and get 4 teams in, which I still think is a reasonable proposition. But for his, often uninspiring as the bubble is, we're actually getting a pretty intriguing crunch about, the 4 to 6 teams that are in the field right now projected, and the 4 to 6 that are just on the cut line or just on the outside looking in. There's a lot there. Let's take a tour, and GP, you want to start? All the other relevant results from Tuesday night, and almost all of these are bubble related. Let's start in the SEC. You want to you, what was the biggest one? Georgia doesn't mess around in South Carolina. Arkansas wins on the road at Vanderbilt, or Texas peeing down its leg but somehow finding a way to get the win in overtime at Mississippi State. What meant the most to you?
I think Texas 87, Mississippi State 82 in overtime. Mississippi State's got a number next to its name, at least for now. And as we've noted, Texas isn't just playing to try to get on the right side of the bubble. Texas might be playing to see if Rodney Terry can get another year in Austin. And so that gives UT a 5th quadrant 1 win. They're now 7-13 in the first 2 quadrants to illustrate something you just mentioned. There's a lot of bubble teams that aren't good in the first 2 quadrants. Texas is one of them. Arkansas is still kind of another one. But that was a big win for Texas, a big win for Rodney. And, I thought that was the most interesting result from the SEC schedule on Tuesday night.
I tell you what, Texas, just as an objective viewer, it was infuriating to see the way that Texas vomited away a win in regulation. Now they get the win in OT, and man, did they need it. Trey Johnson with 23 points. I'm actually still surprised they won the game to get to 17-13. Mississippi State is now 20-10, by the way, and it's just been, it's had a hitch in its giddy up here for a good while. Don't know what to make of Mississippi State. It's obviously going to make the tournament with ease. Just don't know what to do with this team. It's not outstanding in any one given thing. It's got a Texas team that might not even be in the tournament on its home floor, and it can't get it done. So we'll put the Mississippi State stuff to the side for another time there. But yeah, Texas blew a 9-point lead with 3 and change to go. Held on in what was a mandatory win situation. Arkansas 90-77 at Vandy. This was a 10 Eastern tip. This was a late tip, so 9 local. Hogs are now 18-12. And if my memory serves correct, they were 6-12 in Q1, Q2 going into yesterday, which means they should be 7-12. That's exactly what they are, 7-12. But they got the win. They needed it, and it is a good win. Vanderbilt, as previously mentioned on the show, it's a lock. Trevon Brazile had his best game of the season, 16 points, 14 rebounds. John Calipari's team goes in, gets an important win, and now Arkansas will close the regular season at home against those Mississippi State Bulldogs I just brought up. That's one to keep an eye on. And then Georgia doesn't mess around. I think Georgia is 1 win away from being a lock. It wins at South Carolina 73-64. Dogs are 19-11, have won 3 straight. Bubble games all over the place on Tuesday, and a lot of teams, as you're gonna see here as we go through it, a lot of teams wound up winning in those spots, which I like to see because it makes the bubble cut line all the more interesting and competitive, and with teams that are a bit more accomplished. So that was a good one for Georgia. Big 12 GP, can we pivot?
Well, yeah. Let's just start with the ranked on ranked one there. Obviously no bubble implications, but big game. BYU 88, Iowa State 85 in overtime. Richie Saunders got 23.6 rebounds. BYU's now got a 7-game winning streak featuring wins over Kansas, Arizona, Iowa State. We've talked a lot this season about the unusual number of first-year coaches who have flipped programs in less than a year. And obviously it's a byproduct of transfer waivers and NIL. Like, in a different era, you'd get a job in March or April, and all the high school players, all the good ones, except maybe 2, are signed. If you go get a transfer, they got to sit out a year unless they are able to get a waiver. It was just very difficult to flip a program inside of a year. And that's why you'd always hear coaches talking about 3-year plans and 5-year plans, and we need time and give it time. You don't need time anymore. You need a competent coach and an NIL package. And we've spent a lot of time talking about that this season, and focusing on guys like Pat Kelsey at Louisville, Mark Pope at Kentucky, Mark Byington at Vanderbilt. Andy Enfield at SMU has done a pretty good job in year 1. Ben McCollum at Drake, Jared Calhoun at Utah State. Kevin Young at BYU needs to be on that list. He's got this program headed toward the NCAA tournament. I got him into the top 25 and 1 this morning. He's another first-year coach who's doing a terrific job. And if you're an AD, by the way, who is leaning toward going the quote NBA route with your next hire, this is the type of stuff that can help you. Athletic directors, university presidents, they love to have something to point to say, well, like, look what they did. It's similar to what we're doing, and it worked. And Kevin can be that for some athletic director out there. And I bet you he will be. I bet you a quote NBA person will be hired as a college head coach. And at some point during the introduction, they're going to mention something like this.
Yeah, well, this is literally happening right now, barring Alex Jensen, who's an assistant with the Dallas Mavericks, unless he has a change of heart. I guess a little news stuff here, because this has been percolating over the past couple of days within the same state and at 2 rival schools. My understanding is that Alex Jensen basically has the Utah job if he wants it. He was looked at seriously last time when Craig Smith got the job, and he's been in the NBA for 12, 13 years now, played at Utah. The last time Utah was like big picture good was when Jensen was a player, when they made the 98 Final Four. They haven't been back to the Elite 8 as a program since 98. Haven't been to the Sweet 16 since 2015. I think it's been a while. So, unless Jensen wants to stick it in the NBA, as I understand it at this hour, it is up to him if he wants to take the job, and if he does, it will be his. So yes, to GP's point, we are going to see that, and I wonder if that'll actually come to fruition over the next 24 to 48 hours. Overall, real quick on the game, BYU won this game despite having 29 turnovers per Opta stats. It's the first team to have 29 or more turnovers against a ranked opponent and still win since Iowa had 31 and beat Kansas also on the road, just like BYU did it on the road on Tuesday. That happened in 1998 stuff. Happened in 1998. Teams had been a combined 0-117 against ranked opponents when having 29 plus turnovers since Iowa last did it. BYU did it. Not only did BYU do it, it was down 14-5, 10 minutes into this game. It subsequently flipped and went on a 49-19 run, got up by 30 or 21 points in the second half, blew that lead. Iowa State came back. Joshua Jefferson had 19. Momcilovic had 18. Curtis Jones had 16. Taman Lipsey actually had himself a fairly nice game overall. 15 points, 8 assists, 3 steals. It wasn't enough. I thought it was a really impressive, gutty performance for a BYU team that we'll see how the next 10 days go. But if this keeps up and like BYU only loses one game between now and the bracket, like that'll probably be a trendy Sweet 16 Elite 8 pick, and understandably so with how they've been able to play as of late. Kevin Young has done a really nice job there. Iowa State doesn't normally lose those kind of games in those kind of situations. Like they come out of the gate, they are stifling their opponent. BYU couldn't get almost anything to go into the 10. And then suddenly there's been 2 situations here. Kansas State, although that game was a little bit different in the way that it played out than this one, there's just, Hilton Magic has kind of backfired on the Cyclones there. And that was senior night for ISU. They go on the road and play Kansas State this weekend. Other bubble stuff in the Big 12 GP. Baylor got 2 free throws late to hold off and beat TCU. And in the process, just, avoided having some resume calamities in that kind of situation. They win 61-58 at the Horned Frogs, and I thought that was I thought it was pretty damn important that I think it was Rob Wright that hit those foul shots. And then West Virginia won 79. Speaking of Utah, West Virginia won 71-69 at Utah to keep its tournament hopes healthy. Parrish, the Mountaineers, they haven't been notable over like the past 6 or 7 weeks, haven't done a ton in terms of victories over projected tournament teams. But they do have a resume that's enough as of today to get them into the field. So again, more bubble stuff that went down in the Big 12 on Tuesday night.
Any other bubble stuff you want to touch on before we get out of here?
Yeah, I got a few.
Look ahead.
There's another 2 OT game. How can I not? Come on now. Is this another way of getting D-blurred? 116-114. Ohio State beats Nebraska. And in the process avoids being an Ohio State team that's 2 games above 500. They win most points in a game for Ohio State since 1995. Our buddy Adam Jardy sent along this note as well. It was the first time ever that Ohio State had allowed an opponent to get to 100 points and actually had won the game. So good deal there. Bryce Williams had 43 points in this game. He set the Nebraska single game scoring record in the process there. Previous was 42 by Eric Piatkowski. What a throwback. Of course. Who else could it be?
Who else could it be?
Big 8 tournament against Oklahoma. Yeah. Big E. Love that. So Ohio State wins the double bubble fair there. Both those teams have plenty of work to do. Oregon beat Indiana 73-64. This was a close game. Ducks pulled away in the final minute. Jackson Shelstad just loves, and I mean loves, cashing 26-footers in like big moments. I really want to see him do it in the tournament because he deserves that moment. He's hit, I want to say in his career at Oregon, he's had like now 6 or 7 of these where there's been a tight game, ball in his hands, and his toes aren't an inch behind the line. He is out there. He is out yonder, and he's like, I got this cash money. That was really the spark that helped Oregon pull away. Indiana is now 18-12, finishes up at home on Saturday against Ohio State. Double bubble matchups galore awaiting us this weekend. We'll obviously dive into that more on the Friday show. And the only other one bubble related, I think, from Tuesday is Carolina did not mess around whatsoever and won 91-59 at Virginia Tech. Tar Heels are now 20-11. The Albatrosses at the Tar Heels only have 1 quad 1 win to this point. Duke awaits coming to Chapel Hill this weekend on Saturday. I think it's a must-win game for obvious reasons, but we can dive in more into that on Friday.
Before we get out of here, we will look ahead to the next couple of nights. But first, let's get one more word from our partner.
Gives it to Jenkins for the championship. A 16 beats a 1.
From sweet to elite to the Final Four.
All right, before we get out of here, let's look ahead to the next 2 nights. We got a doubleheader tonight on CBS Sports Network, 6:30 Eastern, Inside College Basketball. I'll be in studio for that, and then all night, 7 o'clock tip, Xavier at Butler. Then a 9 o'clock Eastern tip, Davidson at Loyola Chicago. A little after 11 o'clock, we will have a special, not special, pretty normal. It'd be a pretty normal.
You make it special.
I'm going to try my best to make it special, but it'd probably just be a pretty normal 30-minute episode of Inside College Basketball. Elsewhere in the sport tonight, number 13 Maryland's at number 17 Michigan. Number 20 Marquette is at UConn. Number 4 Tennessee is at Ole Miss, and we got a game between possible number 1 seeds. You picked it earlier. Number 5 Florida is at number 7 Alabama. Obviously, Florida-Alabama is the biggest game there, and you think the Crimson Tide are going to handle that at home?
I think they win a close one. Yeah, give me the Tide to get that done. Although the way that if Florida wins, keep your eye on this.
Okay, do it.
If Florida wins by, Florida goes in and wins by 14 points, would you honestly be surprised? They have made a habit of mutilating some high-end teams with semi-regularity. It just wouldn't surprise me. I think Alabama's going to win, but give Florida a real shot at obviously going in and winning the game on the road. Alabama, I know Alabama fans remember this, but there's a lot going on here. Keep in mind, it just blew the game on the road over the weekend against Tennessee. Let's see how it responds and rebounds in this matchup here. So yeah, that's a big time one. Maryland and Michigan needing to win the game or needing Michigan State to lose against Iowa. Otherwise, when the two meet this weekend, Michigan won't have a chance for at least a share of the Big Ten regular season title. That is a very tasty matchup. That is a 6:30 tip. That gets us going here on Wednesday night. Missouri at Oklahoma. I don't think you mentioned that one. That's Oklahoma with a home opportunity. Another bubble situation. You got to win it, Sooners. Got to win it. You got Mizzou coming into your place. You need to take care of business. If Oklahoma loses this game, it's going to be 17-13 with a 4-13 record in the SEC. And while I get that people will point to league records and say you can't let a team that has had that many opportunities in a league and not one get into the tournament. Remember, conference records, there's a reason why they're never shown on the screen when we bring up NCAA tournament resumes. The committee doesn't consider them. Having said that, Parrish, I am personally willing, wanting, able to say that if you are playing a league schedule, how about a win percentage? If you can't win at least 30%, 33% of your league schedule, no matter if it's the greatest league in the history of college basketball, you probably shouldn't be allowed entry into the NCAA tournament. At a certain point, you need to win your games. And if Oklahoma loses this, it will be 4-13. It will be a team that has wins over Arizona and Louisville and Michigan. Those are all really good non-conference wins. But at 4-13, surely you would agree, Parrish. Like you have to win these games at some point. So Oklahoma will not be in the field or projected field with a loss here. With the win, we can circle back. You agree with me though, even though conference record isn't criterion. At a certain point, like if you're so bad, no matter what you do in the non-con, you should be DQ'd.
No, I don't. To do it that way, you're holding schools to different standards.
Yes, I think it's not too much to ask a school that once you get into league play, you beat your contemporaries at least 4 or 5 times. Yes, I'm willing to say that is a minimum bar to clear. Yes.
I would not subscribe to that. I understand your point. I wouldn't subscribe to it because you're holding schools to different standards, and then you're even holding schools within leagues to different standards because of unbalanced schedules. Like even the schools in the same leagues aren't playing the same schedules. And so I just think you're setting arbitrary lines that run counter to what it is we're supposed to be doing, which is taking all the automatic bids and then filling out the rest of the bracket with the best at-large candidates, regardless of where they come from, regardless of how they did in a league. I will tell you, there are 2 often referenced things that I quite literally never look at. Never. Like, have no idea. Outside of, like, if Auburn's running away with the SEC or Houston's running away with the Big 12, I might know what their conference record is. But there are 2 things often referenced I never even look at, even as somebody who looks at stuff every morning when you're ranking 26 basketball teams daily. I never look at conference record. Never. I mean, no idea. And I had no idea what Oklahoma's conference record was before you told me that. I just don't even look at it. And strength of schedule. I don't look at strength of schedule at all. I don't care what anybody's strength of schedule is. I'll evaluate your resume my own way, but not by looking at strength of schedule, because I think it can be misleading. I'll look at who you played, who you beat, who you lost to, where these things happen, and I'll evaluate you based on that. But I don't need some strength of schedule metric that doesn't actually do what so many people think that it does. If you rank number 1 in 3-point field goal percentage, that means you make your 3-point shots at a better rate than anybody else in the country. That it means exactly what it suggests it means. If you have, or if you're number 1 in strength of schedule, it does not necessarily mean you've played the toughest schedule. And yet so many people interpret it that way. I don't even bother to look at it.
Well, we now have things like strength of record and wins a bubble that give more perspective and insight into what teams have done against the difficulty of their schedule anyway. So those are better metrics. Xavier's at Butler. That's a bubble team to keep an eye on. CBS Sports Network, as GP mentioned before. Xavier, keep going to where it needs to be going. Needs to get that win. Marquette UConn's just a really tasty game. I'm intrigued to watch that and see if those two teams can give us a fun little matchup there. But yeah, Wednesday's pretty good, pretty well rounded overall. I'm excited for a pretty awesome night of Wednesday ball.
On Thursday, I need my Jell-O remedy maybe.
Yeah.
On Thursday, only one ranked team in action. That's number 8 Michigan State at Iowa. So slow night typically is. But oh, buddy, this will be our last slow Thursday for a minute.
It will be. And that is absolutely correct, because Thursday next week, conference tournaments. After that, first round of the tournament. After that, Sweet 16, Elite 8. So this is, enjoy it if you seek to enjoy it. But we are revving up with a quickness.
All right, let's call it a show. Shouts to Devin Downey. Shouts to Chester, South Carolina. Shouts to Terry Teagle, legend. Huck, Larnell. Thank you guys once again for watching, listening to the Eye on College Basketball Podcast. If you're not subscribed, please go subscribe anywhere you subscribe to podcasts, Apple, Spotify. More of us than there are of them. That should be reflected in the comments. So do that. We'll talk to you again real soon. Till then, take care.